Welcome to Story-Based English. Make your learning journey fun and exciting with engaging stories.
Once upon a time, there was a young man named Hugo who lived near a big forest. He used to be a rich and good woodcutter, owning lots of land in the forest. He worked hard and people respected him. But Hugo didn't take care of his money well. He cut down too many trees and sold them for too little money. He spent money on things that weren't important and didn't save for the future. After a while, Hugo's business started to fail. There were fewer and fewer trees to cut. People stopped buying from him, and he lost his tools and land. He and his wife, Clara, had nothing left, only a small, broken house that was not very warm. The house had holes in the roof, and when it rained, water came inside and got their things wet. The wind blew through the broken walls, making it cold inside. Hugo and Clara tried their best to make money. Hugo tried to find work cutting wood for others, or helping with other jobs in the village. But it was never enough. They barely had enough to eat, and they often went to bed hungry. Even though they were poor, Hugo and Clara hoped for a child. For many years, they wanted a family, hoping that a child would make them happy. But when they were rich, their prayers didn't come true. Something amazing happened when they had nothing left. One cold night in winter, Clara had a beautiful baby boy. His bright blue eyes and soft crying made their small home feel warm. Clara held the baby and cried because she was so happy. Clara said, "What are we going to do? We can barely feed ourselves, and now we have a baby." Hugo looked at his wife and their new son. He was also worried, but he didn't want to show it. Hugo said, "He is a gift from God. If God gave him to us, he will help us take care of him." But Clara didn't believe him. She looked around their small, cold house and said, "We should ask someone to bless him. We should ask someone to be his godparent." They didn't have any family nearby, and their friends were also poor. Hugo thought for a moment and decided to ask their neighbor, an old woman named Marta. Marta lived alone, and even though she didn't have much, Hugo thought she might agree to help. The next morning, he knocked on her door, holding the baby wrapped in an old blanket. Marta opened the door, and when she saw Hugo, her face became soft. "Hugo, why are you here on such a cold day?" she asked. Hugo told her about his situation, telling her about the baby and asking her to be his godmother. Marta's face became serious, and she shook her head sadly. "My dear Hugo," she said, "I am an old woman, and I have little to give. I can barely take care of myself. I'm sorry, but I can't be a godmother. I want to help, but I have nothing to offer your child." Hugo was disappointed, but he understood. He thanked Marta and went home. Clara was waiting anxiously by the fire, which didn't provide much warmth. "What did she say?" Clara asked, even though she already knew the answer from Hugo's face. Hugo shook his head. "She can't help us. She is too poor herself." Clara breathed deeply and sat down, holding their baby close. "What can we expect?" she said sadly. "When we were rich, people came to us all the time, asking for favors and offering friendship. But now that we have nothing, no one wants to know us." Hugo sat beside her and gently touched the baby's tiny hand. "Don't worry," he said softly. "We will find someone. I'll take him to the chapel tomorrow and ask the first kind person I meet on the road to be his godparent." The next morning, Clara wrapped their baby in the old blanket again and kissed his little forehead. Hugo put on his worn coat, pulled his scarf tightly around his neck, and started walking down the road. It was cold, and the wind blew on his face, but Hugo walked with determination. As he walked, he passed the forest where he had once worked. The trees, tall and proud, now belonged to others. Hugo couldn't help but feel sad as he remembered how he had once been in charge of this land. But there was no time to be sad now. He had a son to care for, and he needed to find help. After walking for several hours, Hugo saw an old man in the distance. The man was dressed in old clothes, and he walked slowly, leaning on a walking stick. His back was bent with age, and his beard was long and white. Even though he looked weak, there was something kind and gentle in the way he moved. Hugo hesitated for a moment, not sure whether to ask the old man for help. But then he remembered his promise to Clara and his determination to find a godparent for their son. He called out to the man softly. "Excuse me, sir," Hugo said. "I need a godparent for my son. My wife and I are poor, and we have no family or friends who can help us. Would you be willing to be his godfather?" The old man stopped and looked at Hugo. His eyes twinkled with warmth, and he smiled. "Of course," the old man said. "I would be honored to be the godfather of such a fine child." Hugo was relieved and grateful. He thanked the man, and together they walked to the church. The priest was just about to leave when they arrived. He looked surprised to see them and whispered something to his assistant. He looks clearly annoyed at the late hour. But the old man saw that the priest was not happy. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small pouch. He gave it to the priest, and inside of the pouch was a silver coin, which was enough to pay for the ritual. The priest's attitude changed immediately, and he quickly prepared for the ceremony. The baby was named Leo in a religious ceremony. After the ceremony, the priest offered his blessings, and the old man walked with Hugo back to the road. Before they said goodbye, the old man reached into his coat and took out a small wooden box. He gave it to Hugo with a smile. "This is my gift to your son," the old man said. "Inside, you will find something that will help you care for him. Use it wisely." Hugo took the box. He looked confused, but grateful. "Thank you," he said, even though he didn't know what the gift was. The old man nodded and walked away. Hugo stood there for a moment, watching him to go. Then he opened the box. Inside the box, there was a very small seed. It was so small that you could hardly see it. Hugo held the seed in his hand, wondering what it could be. How could something so small be of any help? But he remembered the old man's words and decided to trust him. When Hugo went home, he showed the seed to Clara. "What is this?" she asked, and looked confused. "I'm not sure," Hugo replied. "The old man said it would help us." Clara, even though she was also confused, believed in the man's kindness. "We should plant it," she said. "Perhaps it is more than it seems." Hugo agreed, and they found a small piece of land beside their house. Hugo dug a small hole and carefully placed the seed inside, covering it with soil. The moment the seed touched the earth, something incredible happened. It began to sprout instantly, and before their eyes could blink, a beautiful tree had grown. Its branches reached high into the sky, and its leaves shone like silver in the sunlight. The tree had fruit, big, golden apples that sparkled in the light. Hugo and Clara were amazed, unable to believe what they were seeing. Hugo reached up and picked one of the apples. When he took a bite, he felt a warmth spread through his body. The apple was sweet and filling, more delicious than anything he had ever tasted. "This tree," Hugo said in amazement, "will provide for us. Its fruit will feed us, and we can sell the apples to buy what we need." From that day on, Hugo and Clara's lives became better. The golden apples not only fed them, but also brought them enough money to rebuild their lives. Hugo bought new tools, fixed their house, and even helped others in the village who were struggling. But no matter how much the tree gave them, Hugo and Clara never forgot the old man's kindness. They always used the tree's gifts wisely, never taking more than they needed. Little Leo grew up surrounded by love and kindness, just as the old man had promised. He often played under the magical tree, and as he grew older, Hugo told him the story of how the tree had come to be. As Leo grew into a strong and kind young man, the tree continued to provide for the family. It became a symbol of hope and generosity, and Hugo and Clara always made sure to share its gifts with those in need. Years went by, and Leo eventually got married and had his own family. The magical tree continued to stand tall, providing for the family for many years to come. Hugo, Clara, and their family lived in peace and happiness, always remembering the lesson that the old man had taught them, that true wealth comes not from money, but from kindness, gratitude, and the willingness to share with others.
Thanks for watching Story-Based English. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fun stories and English lessons. Keep learning, and we'll see you in the next story.